Hello and welcome. Ever look around and wonder what everything is made of? From the phone in your hand to the stars up in the sky? Well, today we're going to dive into the ultimate guide for everything in the universe, the periodic table of elements. Now, I know what you might be thinking. The periodic table can look a little complicated, right? A big chart with a bunch of letters and numbers. But what if I told you it's actually one of the most useful and perfectly organized charts ever made? It's our key to understanding all the building blocks of our world. The best way to think about it is like a giant, super organized city map for every single element. Each element gets its own special address, and that address tells us everything, not just where it lives, but who its neighbors are and even what its personality is like. It's our map to literally everything. So, how in the world does this amazing map work? What makes it so perfectly organized? Well, it all starts with the basics. Its rows and its columns. Let's break it down. Okay, first let's look at the horizontal rows, the ones that go from left to right. We call these periods, or in Arabic, a dodat. There are 7 of them in total. A simple way to think about them is like floors in a tall building. Every time you go down to a new period, you're going to a new floor where the electrons have a little more energy and more room to zoom around. See? Just look at this. The very first floor, period 1, is super small. It only has 2 elements. But as we go down to the second and third floors, we start finding more and more elements. Each new row is a whole new energy level for those electrons. All right, next up we have the vertical columns, the ones that go straight from top to bottom. These are called groups, or al-majmu'at. And this, right here, is where the table gets really clever. You see, all the elements in the same group, they act in very similar ways. They're basically like a family, all with similar personalities. Here's a perfect example. We're looking at just one of those families, one group going straight down the table. The cool thing is, if you know how one element in this column likes to behave, you've got a really good clue about how all the others will behave too. It's an awesome shortcut for scientists. So, with all these families and neighborhoods, just how many elements are we talking about? Well, right now, the modern periodic table has 118 known elements, all tucked away in their own perfect spot for us to study. But wait, there's more. The organization doesn't just stop with rows and columns. The entire table is also split into 4 main neighborhoods, or what we call blocks, and each one has its own unique vibe. And here they are. We've got the S block over on the left, the P block on the right, the D block right in the middle, and then the F block, which kind of floats down at the bottom. To really get a feel for how these work, we're going to focus on the S and P blocks today. Let's start our tour with the S block, located on the far left side of our map. This neighborhood has 2 very important families. The first one, Group 1A, is called the alkali metals. And right next door, in Group 2A, we have the alkaline earth metals. So let's take a closer look at sodium, or Na, which lives in Group 1A. If you check out its electron structure, you'll see it has just one single lonely electron in its outermost energy level, or مستوى الطاقة الخارجي. And that one little electron is really desperate to find a friend, which is what makes sodium and its whole family super reactive. Okay, now let's jump all the way across the table to the P block neighborhood on the right-hand side. This area is a bit bigger. It's got 6 different groups, and it's home to some really famous families, like the halogens and the very cool noble gases. So this very last group, Group 18, is home to the noble gases, or al-ghazat an-nabila. These guys are famous for being incredibly chill and stable. Why? Because their outer electron shell is completely full. They have all the electrons they need, so they just don't feel the need to react with anybody else. They're happy just the way they are. Okay, now this is where things get really cool. We can actually use what we know about an element's electrons to find its exact address on the periodic table. Let me show you how it's done. For a lot of the elements, it's a super simple 2-step process. First, you just count how many energy levels the atom is using. Remember, those are our floors. That number tells you the period number. Easy. Second, you just count the electrons in the very last outermost level. And guess what? That gives you the group number. That's it. Let's try it with an example. Chlorine, or Cl. As you can see right here, its electrons are spread out across 3 energy levels. So, what does that tell us? It has to be in period 3. Now let's look at just the outermost level. How many electrons are there? 7. And that means it must be in group 7A. See? We just found its exact address on the map. All right, you've learned how to read the map. So now I think it's time to test out your new skills. Let's try a quick challenge together. You ready? Okay, here is our first challenge. I want you to close your eyes and picture period 2. That's the second row from the top. Think about the elements you'd find there as you go from the left side all the way to the right. Now, which one of these statements is true for those elements? Take a good look at the options on your screen. Let's think this through. Does period 2 have 2 inert gases? Does it have any of those transition metals that live in the middle? Or think about that pattern we talked about. How does a period start on the left and how does it end on the right? I'll give you a second. Feel free to pause if you need a little more time to think. So, did you get it? The correct answer is C. If you got that right, awesome job. Just remember, every period starts on the left side with a really reactive metal, like lithium, and then it goes all the way across to end on the far right with a super stable inert gas, like neon. You did some amazing work today, seriously. Before we go, let's just do a super quick recap of the most important things we learned. So, to sum it all up, the periodic table is our perfectly organized map for all the elements. We learned that the horizontal rows are called periods, or دوrat, and the vertical columns are called groups, or المجموعات. We also found out that an element's address is all decided by its electrons, and that the whole map is divided into 4 main blocks, S, P, D, and F. Great job! You really did do amazing today. Now you understand the basic language of the periodic table, which is a huge deal. Keep up the fantastic work, and never forget that learning is all about having fun and discovering the secrets of the world around us. See you next time!